The following panel is sponsored by Space Exploration Technologies. The final panel of the day focuses on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math education. SpaceX and its friends have spent tremendous time scouring the field and universities to build a team with the right stuff. Their findings have enabled dreams of expanded space exploration to verge on reality. Yet it runs the risk of being unsustainable without a highly trained technical American base. The moderator for today is Miss Dolly Singh, who is currently the head of talent acquisition and programs at Space Exploration Technologies. And they seem to be involved in a conversation in the back. Oh, here they come. Please welcome them with a round of applause.
Thank you.
I think this one's on.
Yeah. Is it just you and me?
Liz.
Yeah. I thought there was going to be two other people. I don't care. I just wondered.
There's famous people out here. Let's get their picture.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's okay to take a movie?
I'm going to start with a still photo. And there's a camera, there's a picture of a guy taking a picture. Proof of the paranormal right there.
He's with AP Press.
Is he associated?
You'll have to ask him about that later.
I'll post this in the
Hi.
Hi, Dolly. Hi, Bill. She's working. Got to tweet that.
Yeah, let's do the 3D thing. You know, where me and you and
Oh, wow, dude. It's like so out there. So you ready to go?
We are ready to go.
'Cause
Thank you guys
I'd
for
tweet this
coming.
photo if we weren't ready.
Tweet it.
I think you should tweet the photo first.
Absolutely.
Do I need to adjust the speed of light slightly?
Should I stand back?
No, we do it all the time, actually.
Oh, great.
Slowing down is no problem when it comes to this. Slowing the speed of light down is no problem. It's speeding it up that seems to be so far.
Is this rumbling? Is that?
It's just an earthquake. It's nothing to worry about. Did anybody? We had in Southern California. We had one yesterday morning. Literally woke me up. Anyone? Anyone? No?
It wasn't that bad.
Well, the word bad, I mean, they happen. Why don't they do something about that?
Did you guys want to get started?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, guys, I'm going to thank you guys for joining us. My name's Dolly Singh. I work for SpaceX. I've been lucky enough to be in charge of helping build what I think is one of the world's sort of premier engineering armies. Hopefully you guys have followed along. We've done some pretty cool stuff as of late, and we've done it really on the backs of some remarkable engineers that we've been able to bring to the fold. One of the issues that is of long-term concern is whether or not we're going to continue to have that kind of capability in the United States to continue to do the types of things that we've done recently over the longer term. And so we wanted to bring together some really smart people that have a lot of passions about this particular subject. And so I'd like to introduce our panel. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So Tom Atchison is one of our panelists. We're really glad to have him here today, as is Liz Kennick.
Liz, do you want to come over here? Sure. So we have one big happy thing.
I'm going to sit you in the middle. And then a man who needs no introduction, Bill Nye. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with some of the great work that he's done. Next slide. So these are sort of the scary stats, right? That as a nation, we seem to be falling further and further behind in math and science. And those of us that are involved in the world of science and technology, this is an issue that not only should we care about, but when we get together at events like this, I think it's important to really bring to the forefront and continue to have an engaging discussion about so we can try to move the issue forward. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions for each of our panel members. So I'm going to give the first one to Tom. So how does STEM affect our national interests?
Okay, so I think there's a number of levels where you're going to have some impact, and I think where people are concerned. At a military level, obviously the defense of the nation requires a next generation that's going to continue to be able to make the technological investments for us to maintain our force readiness, to be able to prepare defense systems that are necessary for protecting the nation. Obviously it requires U.S. citizens. We don't have the next generation coming through in science and technology and math and engineering. We're going to fall behind. And we're already starting to see the ramifications of what's happening there with globalization in terms of economic competitiveness. We're falling behind there quite a bit. So both economically as well as from a national security standpoint, I think those are kind of two obvious areas where STEM are pretty key. But I think also as a kind of a general public morale and how we feel about our society and what we do on a day-to-day basis, people like to feel good about what we do as a nation and as a country. I remember when I was a kid and I was watching the Apollo programs, and we'd go to people's houses and everybody was having parties and we were watching them walk on the moon and everybody was feeling really good about that. The only recent time I can think of that now just happening was the recent docking with the Dragon. My buddy Steve over there was there present, and I was watching that, and I had that same emotional feeling, and everybody you talked to was on fire about it. And I think that's good for a nation that's hungering right now for good things that we do, right? And I think education becomes a key to some of that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and what we're doing with the foundation, because everybody's interested in inspiration. And I think what SpaceX is doing is inspiring. There was a democratization discussion here earlier talking about how do you keep the public engaged. NASA can do a great job of inspiring, but to get engagement, we really need to focus on what we try to view as ourselves in the aspiration business, because you have to get people to actually engage and have ownership, and you have to aspire to be a part of it, and only with aspiration will you get engagement. And so these are some key pieces, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about our foundation.
Great, thank you. So Liz, next question will be for you. What are the actions being taken to address STEM in America currently?
Okay, so first I want to say that I actually have a group of teachers here tonight because we happen to be doing a Teachers in Space class. There they are. Come on, stand up real quick. These are high school STEM teachers. They teach science, technology, engineering, and math, and they're here this week taking a workshop on flight experiments. And so what these teachers are doing this week is they have been building experiments with data sensors that they're going to fly on a weather balloon, which will be filled with hydrogen. They're going to fly that on Friday, and they have already been through a NASA flight readiness review of the payload and the balloon and the way that they're going to fill it, track it, and retrieve it. Today, they flew some of the same data sensors on a Zeppelin, and they are also competing to send one of their experiments to the International Space Station at the end of the year. So the reason they're doing this is that the teachers are telling me, and they're telling a lot of people, and we're seeing this in research, that not only are kids turned off to STEM, they're not excited about it, their parents are telling them there's no jobs, the space industry is over, the jobs have gone to China and India, and they should go be computer programmers or doctors, which are great things to be, but they're being discouraged from going into engineering and going into aerospace. And the teachers are telling me that they're also very discouraged because they have to spend all their time testing. Testing is required at the state level, and they're not allowed to teach. Even if they learn how to build these experiments, it's going to be difficult for them to take this back to the classroom. However, there are two positive things coming. There is a change to the curriculum where the curriculum is going to be allowed to go deeper, and that's going to start happening in about 2013. The teachers are already starting to learn the new curriculum. And the other thing that's happening is there's going to be an engineering track added from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So that's exciting. So these are two things that are good, but it's really, really, really important that we find a way to de-emphasize and take out some of the incredibly consistent, just constant standardized testing and let these teachers get more into real science and stuff that the kids can do, that they can experiment and explore and be curious and learn.
And just to follow up on that, just to briefly follow up on that, one of the things that SpaceX looks for, and you guys will hear about this in our info session that's following up, is really not just engineering in the mind, right, where you understand the theory and you've read all the textbooks, but have you actually ever built something and made it work? So I think there's really inherent value in allowing students from the very early ages all the way up through university to actually build and design real things. And that is something that we as a nation do less and less. We don't manufacture most of our own goods anymore, and there's a it's a really slippery slope when you get into that trend. So thank you for the work that the teachers are doing. It's really great to hear. Next question will be for Bill. What are the issues with our current approaches to handle these challenges at a national level?
There are no issues. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
No, I'd say two things. First of all, the idea of No Child Left Behind was reasonable. This is to say, you would have tests that everybody would agree to. In my era, we use the expression learning objectives. These would be things that you could test, you could agree that were worth learning. And so that seemed like a great idea, but it got carried away, where the test became the most important thing without the excitement, the PB&J, the passion, beauty, and joy of science. So how many people, how many people have a favorite teacher? How many people have more than one favorite teacher? How many people have three? Yeah. A few, yeah. So what was it about, how many people did not have a favorite teacher? Yeah, okay, and they're not here, so yeah. And the reason, what is it about a teacher that engages you and makes you want to achieve for him or her? And it's his or her passion. That's I believe is the key. So in order to get passionate people involved in teaching, we have to provide salaries that are consistent with. Now you guys, this is the ancientest, oldest thing. People have complained about this since the beginning of public schools. That it costs money and the real money has to be spent on people who are qualified. But I claim we have an opportunity, a specific opportunity. And we at the Planetary Society would very much like to work with SpaceX and Students for Exploration and Development in Space. And it turns out the single most reliable indicator of whether or not you will pursue a career in science is algebra. Algebra, it depends on who you are, 7th or 8th grade is when you're first exposed to symbols representing numbers that you don't know yet. So the reason I bring this up, the study's very compelling, but the other thing, very compelling, but the other thing is teaching algebra should be cheap. It shouldn't cost that much to teach algebra. So if we just gave it a tweak and we had games and online algebra exercises, I think we could change the world inexpensively. So those are, one is a big intractable problem, getting school districts to support teacher salaries, getting people to go into teaching instead of fabulous engineering jobs at rocket companies, and then, or in addition to that, before they go to the rocket company, and then I just think there's real opportunity in algebra. So at the Planetary Society, we're trying this. We're having a kids section, and I'm trying to put, I say trying, we are putting algebra into every kids section. We'll see if it has any effect.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. So we're actually going to give each of the panelists an opportunity to talk a little bit about their organizations, and then we'll run into questions. So why don't you start off, Mr. Atchison?
Okay. All right, great. I was just in the last session on democratizing space, and Bob Twiggs over here asked a question about how many people were interested in flying their own satellites, and if you're interested in that, you might want to go talk to him. But he tossed some things out. But within all of us, there's kind of a 7-year-old on the 4th of July, or back in 1969 when the moon landings were done. Even I'm 51, and I still am on fire like I was 10 or 11 during the moon landings. There's a real passion, and there's an inspiration and a drive in us about the wonders of this last frontier. And that inspiration can be connected into engagement in a natural kind of exercise, whether you're 51 or whether you're a middle school kid who's just learned the scientific method. And the kind of the missing piece comes into what we focus on, which is this whole concept of aspirations, which is enabling you to actually convince that you can actually do this for yourself. I don't know how many of you have been off and looked at the exhibits in the other air. There's 2 very large rockets in there. Those were built, designed, and flown by high school kids. Kids can do remarkable things given the opportunity, but to enable that, while education is important, and educators are something we vastly need to invest more into, we also need mentors and mentorship. And through mentorship, you can enable aspirations, and once you ignite that in the next generation, it's unstoppable. We saw it in the personal computer industry, we saw it in the internet industry, and that's what our foundation is about. We're focused on both trying to increase and accelerate the number of kids at the middle school and high school by doing things, right? By physically doing things with mentors and support, and not big things that they can brag about amongst their social peers. The social power, particularly for middle school and high school kids, is unstoppable. They're looking at what groups, what peers they're going to associate with, and if you can tap into that and engage that with a way for them to raise themselves socially amongst their peers, you have got an incredible force to be able to deal with some of these same national security issues and economic issues that we want to deal with. And so all they need is support, infrastructure, mentoring, reference designs, and the teachers become facilitators in this, right? And it really also provides an interesting opportunity to revolutionize the educational environment. How many people have seen Khan Academy or have used Khan Academy and what they do? What Salman Khan is doing is just completely turning the educational process upside down. Lecture occurs at home with homework through very smart tutorials that you can go over and over and over until you get it, which allows the classroom to be a place for doing, right? It's not sitting to kind of board canned lectures that are going on, right? And enabling that environment with mentors and teachers will completely change the educational process, but it will also engage students into the excitement and that passion in them about space, right? And so this is basically what we set out to do with our foundation. And then once you can get students at the college level with lower division engineering courses under their belt, real-world spaceflight environment, like those vehicles that are in the other room. If you haven't seen the documentaries that were done on us by PBS or by Science Channel, I encourage you to go watch those. You'll see that these kids are doing remarkable things, and when they get into the university environment, they immediately want to start pursuing those ideas in their own mind, and the research gets accelerated. And that ultimately is going to give you the Army that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what we do at Mavericks. We'll talk more about it if you're interested. But
Great. Liz has some slides she's going to go over, so can we switch to those? Perfect.
How do I change them if I want to change them?
How do you change them? Just tell them to flick the next slide.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Teachers in Space is a program of the Space Frontier Foundation, and it was based on the NASA program that was called Teacher in Space, where one teacher at a time was to be flown to the International Space Station on the space shuttle. And unfortunately, when Krista McAuliffe flew as the first teacher in space, the Challenger exploded, and so she didn't return, and that was the end of that program. It was actually really devastating to students across the country to be watching that explosion, so it was not the inspiration that it was meant to be. In the early part of this century, the foundation became aware that many of the new suborbital companies, the commercial companies, were getting ready to fly. And we looked at this as an opportunity to fly hundreds of teachers for much less expense, much less training required, much safer, And we began talking to these suborbital companies to see if they would be willing to fly teachers to space. And so in 2009, we had a competition. We chose 7 teachers, and they're called the Pathfinders. These are really fine high school science, technology, engineering, math teachers. Some of them have NASA launch experience. One is a former pilot. They're just really incredible people with a love of space and technology and education. And we have been working with them. They're the ones that we've promised the first flights to. We do have flights for them. We're working with them to build the workshops for the rest of our teachers. And so that's what I have a few slides to just go through real fast. So we know the problem. The new companies are now ready to start going into production. They're close to flying. They need a big core of qualified workforce. Next slide. They can't find it. Next slide. Okay, so why not? Well, one of the things we found is that if you look at the data on high school seniors who take the ACT test, the college preparedness test, in the STEM areas, only 18%, 12%, I'm losing my numbers. It's like 12% that are both qualified and interested in STEM. So that big blue area are the ones that aren't even qualified, and the tiny little red slice is the ones that are qualified and are still interested. And that's how many we've lost just at 12th grade. Okay, next. So this puts us 23rd in the world in terms of science and 31st in terms of math, with little countries like Yugoslavia up above us. So what do we do about this? Okay, these are actual pictures that I pulled off of Facebook right before I came to talk to you. These are pictures that these teachers are uploading hourly as they're in our workshops learning how to build things and fly them. Next slide. Okay, so I got 3 things that we found that are really going to help make the teachers excited and pass that excitement on to the kids. Connections to real people in the field. So this isn't just stuff we're reading about in books. Experiences in space and technology, real hands-on stuff that they can help the kids relate to. And then curricula, videos, experiments, and exercises that they can take back with them. Okay, next. So industry partners, you've probably seen a lot of these people. They're here. It's people like SpaceX, X-Corps, and Maston are all helping us. Celestial Circuits are here. Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. CAMI, the FAA Civil Aeronautical Medical Institute. These are all big helps to us. The Space Portal has been phenomenal. They're here nearby at NASA Ames. And also SSEP, the Student Spaceflight Experiment Program, who has already flown an experiment from a high school on Falcon to the International Space Station this year, and we have an opportunity to fly one of our own at the end of the year. Next. Okay, so experience and training. We take the teachers flying. They go in gliders. We went on the Zeppelin today. Next. We have curricula. This is from NASA regarding radiation. We have a half day on how to measure your own personal dose of radiation, and lots of programs and problems to work through. And it's really exciting to see the teachers all with their calculators out, because they like this. They're math teachers. Next, okay, these are all the workshops. We're in the 4th one this year. 2nd year we've been doing them. And we have one remaining, suborbital astronautics, where we will tour both X-Corps and SpaceX next week, and we'll be flying in Palmdale. Okay, this is an example of the kind of a payload that gets attached to a weather balloon, which is something that teachers can do inexpensively. We're teaching them the process to map out the flight plan, understand where the balloon's likely to go, get the right permits, and be able to launch it, track it, and retrieve it safely. This is a little bit on how that Hartford, Connecticut school got the funding, $20,000 in a corporate grant, and a lot of help from local universities and other companies and foundations, and they were able to fly their experiment, and the 17-year-old who was the head student on that program has already said that yes, indeed, he does, as you suggested, want to continue this work right through college. So that's really cool. It was bone marrow, having to do with effect of weightlessness on bone marrow, useful for osteoporosis. Okay, so when I give this talk to corporations, I'm telling them, here's what you can do. You've got to go help the teachers, you got to help the administrators, you got to talk to your politicians and tell them why this is important. And if you are parents, if you know parents, you got to make sure they know too. Because students and companies are going to benefit when we take care of STEM education.
Bill, please.
So I'm Bill Nye, the science guy. You may have remember the show.
Once or twice.
But thank you. But what you may not be aware of, I have taken a day job. And for those of you that have one, I really don't know how you do it. It just cuts into your time like nothing else. So as you may know, through some remarkable clerical error, I had Carl Sagan for astronomy. Now, when you graduated in those days, it was right as disco was giving way to new wave and punk. Yeah, yes, the important work of Sid Vicious and the Sex Pistols. Yes. Carl Sagan and two other guys, Bruce Murray, who was the head of JPL at that time during the hey days, Voyager and Viking, and then Lou Friedman, who was a NASA manager, started this thing called the Planetary Society. So I have been a member of the Planetary Society, got on the direct mail paper postal mailing list in 1980, and so I've been a member all this time. Then I was asked to speak at Professor Sagan's memorial service. Then I was asked to be on the board. Then I left the room. I was vice president. And then we went out to dinner, and there was wine and something, and now I'm the CEO. So the Planetary Society goes way back. It goes back to the heyday of the human missions to the moon and so on. And we now want to engage you guys. I want to know what you need from us. So by long tradition at the Planetary Society, every time there's a big landing, especially on Mars, I got to tell you, it goes way back to Carl Sagan. He was kooky for Mars. He realized really back then that Mars was the most likely place to look for signs of water and life, and this was an extraordinary place worth exploring. When there are landings on Mars, when we shot a copper cannonball into Comet Tempel 1, whenever we have these big events, we have a Planet Fest. So this is the biggest Planet Fest so far. A week from this weekend, during Saturday and Sunday in Pasadena, we'll have a big deal. And just today, as I left the office, we had over 24 events around the world, including the country of Ghana, which I think is extraordinary. So the Ghanans are going to get a package from us of magazines and stuff, and we want everybody in the world to celebrate this landing. So here is our claim at the Planetary Society. Planetary science is a fantastic bang for the buck. My friends, if we are able to build a spacecraft for less than the price of a fancy cup of coffee at a certain coffee distribution restaurant thing, once per taxpayer, every 15 years, and we discover evidence of life on another world, my friends, it will change this world. You won't even recognize it. Wait, yes, we'll still drive on the right in the US, but it will change the way everybody thinks about what I like to call our place in space. So to this end, everybody, if anybody's in Southern California, the thing goes on all weekend. We got all the experts. We got, I don't know if you know, Dr. Jim Bell takes all the pictures on Mars. We got Scott Hubbard, the Mars czar, who got the Mars program on track. And we'll have Matt Gollenbach. All these famous Mars scientists will be there. You can come talk to them. There'll be panel discussions. Mark Sarangelo, is he here? Will speak from Sierra Nevada Corporation. And Sunday night, I remind everybody, in Western time, 10:31, the first signal should come down, 22:31 Pacific time. If you're back east, it's 1:30 in the morning. And my friends, I'll just tell you, every time they do this, and I say they, our colleagues at JPL, they say, oh, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to see anything. Don't worry about it. It'll just be a beep. But every time they get a cool picture in the first half hour. So it really is something, you guys. I just want to remind you that the Planetary Society really explores planets. And I'll just finish with this, and then I'd like to, when we get around to it, hear from you guys. But I just remind you, when I went to the World's Fair as a young man in 1965, there were 3 billion people in the world, and rounding to one digit, there were 300 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere, rounding to one digit. Now, when the Planetary Society was started, it was about 340 parts per million. Now, we're well over 390. In some parts of the world, it's 398, I believe. It's over 395 parts per million. And then instead of being 3 billion people, there are 7 billion people. So that is changing our world. And whatever we do in space, whatever we do in planetary exploration, and especially the discoveries that go way back where you compare the climate of Mars with the climate of Venus with the climate of the Earth, we have to be part of it. Space exploration has to be part of understanding the Earth. And so to that end, I really want to know what we can do for you at the Planetary Society. Thank you. It's so nice. Thank you.
So I know we have both the local audience here as well as an online audience, so we'd love to start taking some questions. We've got folks with mics around. Why don't we start over there?
So I was just going to say, Bill and I remember growing up watching you in videos and sitting in middle school, the bow tie, of course.
Yes, yes.
And but it wasn't accessible. Like I didn't have, I couldn't just go down to Lockheed Martin or Boeing and check out their labs. I mean, I know that would have been way cool, but, and I wanted to do this stuff and getting hands-on, and even in high school and even in college, I would love to just be able to engulf myself, I guess,
Well, so how do you feel about what's available on the web?
I was thinking about Khan Academy right before
So we're doing, just say at the Planetary Society, we've started doing videos featuring me about space stuff, but it takes money and stuff. But is that satisfying to you to watch a video online, or you want to get in the factory and cut metal and solder and wire bond?
It's a great start, but again, getting in the factory and doing it, and just.
Well, I would say to you guys, seek internships. I mean, you have to be proactive. Like they're not going to seek you out. You got to work for it. Is that accurate? Or you should go. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of depends on where you live. I'm from Brooklyn, and in Brooklyn, New York, there are places that combine art and technology, and you can go down to a place like I-Beam or Third Ward and get your hands on a 3D printer or a laser cutter. You can build stuff. You can talk to people who are building stuff. And the question is, right? You have Maker Faire. So, like, is there anybody in the audience that has stuff like this around that knows? Tech Shop. Yeah. Okay. So I think there's starting to be more of it. And if you don't have that, then yeah, absolutely. Go online, find out who does have it, and try to bring it to your community, because that's huge.
So you sound like a maverick. Okay. I'm sorry we weren't there earlier. It's particularly with the needs of spacecraft and developing spacecraft, developing rockets, flying those things. There's a special need in the equipment, in the tooling, in the skill sets that you need. You need a mentor, right? You need mentors to be at your side. Mentoring is kind of all about what we do. We have a facility we built like that up in Antioch. We're in the process of trying to build more than them. But they take a special set. We originally tried to do some of the stuff at Tech Shop. Tech Shop doesn't have the resources to build the kinds of things that go into space other than small spacecraft. Their tooling is not big enough, like to build those rockets that are in the other room, right? But this is what we're trying to also encourage engineers and people with the skills in the defense industry to join as mentors in these centers and pick up people like yourself, right? So I would encourage you to come look, I mean, you can go to our website, you can check out some of the stuff that's there. There are folks, NASA is looking at this as well. DARPA's been looking at some things here with Tech Shop. So I think there's a recognition now that trying to provide the mentoring and the resources to enable that, but it's really because the age of the personalization of spaces, we're really on that cusp now. The common man can now start to build and fly simple vehicles themselves, but we need a network of mentors and people to help kind of spread the know-how, spread the capabilities. It's a great opportunity for nonprofits, and it's a great opportunity for education and teachers to participate in. So I know it's probably a little late for what you were looking at earlier, but I think the fabric for that and supporting what you're looking for is now starting to come and become real.
I just wanted to reiterate that accessibility is a huge thing. I think what you guys are doing is awesome. Continue it.
Yeah, and you'll find some videos soon that may be what you're looking for to give you a little bit of tutorials on how to do stuff.
Thank you. Here?
Hi, I'm also a product of Bill Nye in the Classroom, so I followed science through graduate school and kind of veered off into science journalism. And one of the biggest hurdles I was trying to jump over was just this kind of wall of science illiteracy that I kept hitting every time I tried to write for an adult general audience. And my professors, to get around this, kept telling me, oh, just treat your audience like a farm boy in Iowa, and then you'll be able to do it. And that was just deeply troubling for me. And we talked about this a little bit in the last panel, but I was wondering, what are your thoughts on how to address the problems of STEM education for an adult audience or for people who have left school, aside from just reaching parents?
Liz, maybe you take that one?
Yeah, that's a hard one, and I would say that I'm really happy to hear that your interest first was science and then you've gone into journalism, because I think that that is really important. The woman who has won our NewSpace Journalism Award and will be giving her award Saturday night, Carol Pinchevsky, writes for Forbes.com, SpaceFuture.com. She also wanted to be a scientist, went into journalism, and has an incredible ability to take technical things and make them seem fun and funny. And I think that that's something that Bill always did with, right? He's an example. So I think that it's more like, I would say, how would you explain it to a 5th grader? How would you take it to somebody who's intelligent but just doesn't know yet? And I think that we have a generation or two of adults now who are not necessarily extremely sophisticated in science unless they're in that 18%. It's not that they're dumb, they just don't know. And so you have to give it to them at a high level and then get into the details.
No, what's the 18%?
That 18% that are both qualified in STEM and still interested in 12th grade. Yeah.
So I'll give you 2 pieces of advice as a writer. You know, I did okay as a writer. I mean, I was the head writer on the show. Discipline and vocabulary, as I call it, DIV, where you really have to go back and make sure you haven't introduced words that people might not know. Not that there isn't a great deal in words. I'm kooky for words. And then the other thing is show, then tell. I mean, these are easy things to say, but quite difficult to do. But the idea that it can't be done holds a lot of people back when it comes to writing. And by the way, the farm boy in Iowa, my friends, operates so much technology in the modern world. I mean, I know what you mean. And I will remind everybody, when you're talking about Iowa, 99% of the world's popcorn, not just the U.S. popcorn, the world's popcorn. So do not be mad. I'm just saying. So show, then tell, discipline and vocabulary, and you can do it. You can do it.
Maybe here? Somebody have a mic.
Tap, don't blow. In the case of a microphone.
Hopefully. There you go.
I'm 28 years old now, and growing up, I was never involved in science. I wasn't good at it until I got into space, and the spark of passion that ignited within me somehow made science clear, and it became a lot easier for me. And my question is, in working with children and young adults, what's your experience about what that passion can do to transform the child's intent to learn about science? Because I feel like personally I needed to have a catalyst in which I could apply a passion to. And
did you have a favorite teacher who was passionate?
Yeah, a few. And actually my mentor for Outer Space is totally passionate, and I think she has been a catalyst for me.
Can I just ask something real quick? Was that a high school teacher or a college teacher?
Can you repeat it for everybody? Would you please?
That favorite teacher, was that a high school teacher or a college teacher? Yeah, the one your favorite.
It was. I met her after I was out of school, and then I went back. I don't know if this is a question.
Do you want to take this one?
I tried to make it a question.
Okay, so one thing, thinking about my favorite teacher, 10th grade physics class, she said to me at the beginning of the class, you are going to love this class because by the end of this class, you are going to know the answer to just about everything. And I thought, how can that be? But, you know, physics is so like that, how much of how the world works. Compared to a math class that I didn't like, and I normally do like math, but the math class in which, and I think it was trig, we stopped talking about why and only did the formulas. And it just, you know, I could do the formula. I could do my homework in my lap, and then what do I do for the rest of the class? And I totally turned off. So, and that's another thing about the Teachers in Space. We want to give people something in their hands that they can explain to the kids why it's important to be able to measure a curve, you know, what this is for. And then that, I hope, will help them be excited again.
Yeah. So this kind of gets to some of the heart of what we've done with kids and adults. I mean, one of the big challenges we have when we take one of those large vehicles the students have built to fly it is keeping the parents out of the launch participation process. They all want to get in it. I mean, like I said, there's a 7-year-old in all of us. But I think at the heart of it, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but what we've found is knowledge is interesting, but it becomes useful when you can apply it to accomplish something. All of us in our heart have things that we'd like to accomplish with what we know. And there's a very interesting relationship between being inspired, right? Feeling empowered that you can do something about it and that you have knowledge or you want to gain knowledge. And this is part of what drives education and the need for education. Because if you're inspired by something, it drives you to learn more about it. And as you learn more about it, you get questions. And as you get questions, your curiosity peaks and you want to engage, right? And when you engage and you take something that's an idea and make it physically real, right? I mean, I don't think there's a better creative experience in life, right? All of a sudden that idea is real, it's physical, that's there, and when you show it to other people, you inspire. And the most powerful force that we found with students, teachers are great, and it's hard to find those that inspire you. But the real inspiration is amongst peers, right? It's you and your friends. You see it with kids with computers all the time. I mean, I have kids and they're twittering each other back and forth, and I still don't quite understand the Twitter thing, but that's another discussion. I'm told I need to tweet often, and I run out of ideas to do that with. But the kids, if you can get kids to do this stuff, to engage, and they become an inspiration for themselves, and it's extremely powerful. So I don't know if that's, I think maybe what happened for you is what we saw with students is you finally found an opportunity to apply something, right, and get it with something that you were interested in. And now all of a sudden the knowledge had some meaning. I don't know, maybe I missed that. Is that?
That's totally right. Yeah. I think I'm just one of many, many young people today who are going through a disparity of not knowing what to do with their lives. And I think it's important to say that space can be that.
Right. Joseph Campbell would say, follow your bliss, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Hi, I kind of want to build on the engagement factor, what you were just saying. Recently, I was asked to Skype into a science classroom and just answer questions for an hour about their questions about black holes, space, microgravity, and I feel like that's one of the simplest things we can possibly do, is someone with a remotely interesting background or who has done a few things that can be exciting to children. Like I've done 2 microgravity flights, and it was just amazing that I was able to keep their attention for a full hour answering the questions that they asked me. And they just went on and on. One thing built off another. Once they found out something else, you know, I could see the person in the back of the classroom that wasn't interested before, all of a sudden, you know, their curiosity was piqued when we moved on to a different subject about the planets. And I just wanted to say that, you know, I've done a lot of educational outreach programs where we've built rockets, we've tried to explain a lot of physics programs. Sometimes it's just as easy as engaging someone on a personal level. You know, you can produce all the videos you want, but there's still not as much of a back and forth. And as valuable as we know Bill's videos are, and I was also raised on the Science Guy in 7th grade, it's often even just that easy personal interaction. Now that today's technology has progressed so much, there's opportunity for everyone here to just, if they're, keep them interested, keep it interesting, and you can engage those people very well. And I just wanted to go ahead and say that.
Thank you. I want to...
Can I just...
Go ahead.
Oh, no, no.
I actually just wanted to mention Bob Twiggs, who's here. Some of our rock stars at SpaceX came directly through his program. So I wanted to see, Professor Twiggs, if you have any thoughts that you'd like to add to the discussion. Thank you for the work that you've done.
Well, one of the things that is really exciting to me is to see familiar faces when I see movies from SpaceX, and know that some of the students that I worked with are down there. And I'm just exceptionally thrilled, having known Elon for the time he started that company, to see what he does. That is really an inspiration for all of us, and I really want to thank you and all the people at SpaceX for letting us, you know, we're part of that. You know, you watch that, how could you not help but be just, wow.
So when Elon started out, he was our first recruiter, and so it was thanks to the efforts of people like Professor Twiggs that volunteered up some of their best and brightest that we built the foundation that is the SpaceX that we have today. So thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you. I'd still like to add something, or maybe subtract. Okay, we've talked about stuff that we are doing that we think is addressing the problem of science, technology, engineering, math education. But we all agree it's a problem, I think. So I just want to remind everybody to vote. If you don't vote, then you really don't have a say in things. And if it's going to take, I imagine, quite a while, but we have to invest more, in my opinion, which, you know, is correct, which is a huge time saver for me. But in my opinion, we need to invest more in education in every way. And that, at some point, sooner or later, that comes from taxpayers and voters. And that's you. So if, as I always say, if you're not going to vote, would you please just shut up? But you'll find that people don't do that. So vote.
I guess my question kind of builds on some things that have actually been said about teachers and stuff like that. I'm actually with the teacher workshop this week. I hear a lot about teachers, and having been a teacher and stuff like that, yes, we have a really, really important role. But I sometimes see it difficult in getting the parents involved. I see a lot of times teachers are really excited about what they're doing. Their kids are really excited at the end of the day. And then they go home and they try to explain to their parents what they did. They're like, well, why do you want to do that? And I have a student come in the next morning who's just absolutely crushed. And I know there was a question about, you know, who's your favorite teacher? And I went into science, yes, because of science teachers, but my parents, I think, were probably the biggest influence. They never said we could do it, me and my sisters. And so I'm kind of interested in hearing from you three what your ideas are about getting those parents involved. I don't know if my other fellow teachers here have experienced this, but I know that I've seen this time and time again in the research and stuff like that. So just what your thoughts are.
Liz?
Yeah, that is a really tough one because I know it often seems these days like there are many parents who just want to leave the raising of their kids to somebody else, and they want it to be the teacher's job, and they'd like to drop that kid off on their way to work and pick him or her up on their way home and not have to do anything except have dinner and play with them. But that's not the way it works. And I remember when my daughter was in elementary school, one of the things I loved was the math nights that they would do on Monday nights once a month, and they would want the parents to come, and we would play math games with M&Ms and stuff, and the kids loved it, and we got to eat the chocolate, and it was really, really good. And I think that especially now when so often all the parents are working, whether a child has one parent or four parents, you know, and moving back and forth between homes, all the parents are working. And the parents really have to think consciously about how are they still going to take the time to be properly involved with their kids. And I don't know, I totally agree with you. I don't know that there's an easy solution other than for schools and communities to try to remember to include the parents and do more stuff to try to get the parents down there. If you guys have...
Well, I always say on Parent-Teacher Night, have juice and cookies. And I'm not kidding. Word will get out. Yeah. They'll come to your classroom. But that's a hard journey. And you know, one of the things that the Science Guy show worked on, because we had grants from the National Science Foundation, and also the Department of Energy at that time was very concerned about education in elementary school. Was people who don't have parents really around at all. Students who, so the modern, at that time the expression was at-risk kids. And so I say you just got to get the kid so passionate that he or she is going to work anyway, is going to enjoy school anyway. That's a hard nut to crack. And I say this is another thing. What is the most important thing about a neighborhood when you go to buy a house? You guys, not all of you are buying houses yet, but it's the school. The school is the most important thing. That's what raises the quality of life for everybody in the community. Even if you hate teachers and you hate schools, you hate everything, you're a miserable thing hater, you still want to live in a neighborhood with a good school. And this is it's another long process. Well, I don't think there's a magic wand on that, a magic thing. But show your passion.
So we looked pretty hard at this. And we first tried to look at the model that inspired our generation, right? So we had JFK who kind of stood up and said, you know, we do these things and the others, not because they're easy, because they're hard. But I think the other thing that he said was really what I think turned it on for us was this whole idea of, you know, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And we can't do a big national program like that again, right? I just don't think it's feasible given all the other constraints and demands that the government currently has. But we thought, well, what if you built small communities at a local level around the schools, right? And this is where we found the parental engagement really clicked in, right? Because when a school wants to put one of our programs in, the first thing we try to do is bring the parents together. Now, there is a demographic issue here, depending upon where you try to go. Some parents are working 2 or 3 jobs, and they don't have time. Right? You just can't get them in there. But we found that there are those schools can adopt other schools, right? But the parents will always make it, for instance, for the launches, right? And if you look at what we've done in this country with sports, right? And that level of engagement for the games and those kinds of things, you can do that with events around the space exploration, as I mentioned before, because the passion is still in all of us. Right? And we found that to be very effective with the parents, is that the events, the ballooning that you're doing right now, right? You put those balloons on YouTube, the parents see what the kids have done, invite the parents to come out and participate next time, right? It's exciting. They'll find some time. You can kind of treat it like the football game, right? This was one of the big aha moments for me when I was frustrated with my own kids, and part of what drove me to start the Mavericks organization that we did was I was sitting around looking at our culture and the praise and the involvement in sports. And I said, why don't we have the same movement and initiatives with regard to STEM? Huh?
I've been saying this.
Yeah.
I'd like to shake your hand.
Yeah, and I got frustrated, and I called congressmen and all that kind of stuff, and I got the usual results. And then it was like, look, if you want to change the world like this, get off your duff and do it, right? And so that's kind of how it got started. I got into the schools, and then I started to educate myself on the issues, and it's like, okay, this is going to be really, it's going to take some effort and time. But getting parents engaged, I think, has to be done at a local community level, right? But every local community would love to have their own little space program, right? And there was a discussion about the writing, right? One of the things we do with our teams, every one of our launch teams that build these vehicles and fly them, we also include a media team, because it's important for them to communicate on a weekly basis, just like the football teams got their games. What's the space team doing, right? But this is that drip, drip, drip that we had during the moon program, but not at a national area, but at a local level, just like the local Pee Wee football teams and the high school games that go on. So you can look a lot at the sports models that you have in your school and the engagement that they get with the parents at that level, but try to get them engaged and adopted in what you're doing. And we've also got to kind of take the, I mean, I'm a nerd at heart, but and I'm actually probably a nerd, you know, in the wool here too. But we've got to take the kind of the social stigma that's kind of built around STEM, which is I think drives a lot with the parents kind of discouraging. We need to celebrate these things, right? We need the John Glenn's and the Scott Carpenters and the ticker tape parades that we had in the 60s while our nation celebrated these things. But we're not going to get that at a national level, but you can certainly get it with kids, right? And when we flew those first vehicles that those students launched, I mean, Letterman was calling us to put the kids on TV, you know, and they were fighting at CBS morning show about who was going to get us at ABC. The media wakes up when kids do remarkable things. And so I think there's some power in that. The media needs to play a role as well. But I think kind of getting the nerddom off and the social acceptance in our society will help with the messages with the parents. But I think it has to be done at a local community basis. And that local community, I think, as you mentioned, it comes to the schools, right? Because that's really where we all kind of pull together. And that's where I think you've got the most leverage with the parents. But you got to get them engaged.
Let's do one more question, and Bill, you'll take this one, and then we'll close after that. Here.
Hi, my name is Ty Traps, and I'm a summer intern at NASA Ames Academy. I'm studying computer science in school, about to finish my degree this coming spring, 2013. And my question is just hearing how there's a very small percentage of interest and also proficiency in the STEM fields. I feel that that number is even smaller within minority groups and even within women. I was wondering, what are some things that can be done to increase those numbers, and if the programs that you guys already have started, if you have seen an increase in interest from minorities and women?
Well, let me start by reminding everybody, the #1 sitcom right now is The Big Bang Theory, celebrating the nerdiest of nerd. I mean, my goodness. So I'll claim this is evidence of a shift. But about when you want to get women involved, which is a huge problem, it's just a long journey. This is once again where if you want to, the most important thing we can do in the world is raise the standard of living of women. And what I say all the time, your physics teacher told you that you're going to learn how the whole world works, right? Anybody, all science is physics, the rest is stamp collecting? Anybody remember that? Yeah. Just putting labels on things, collecting facts, yeah. So what I always say, and then the message to get out, and this is something I work on, but I'm one guy, the man does not make the earth go around the sun. Somebody in charge of the government does not make the sun rise in different parts of the sky as the year goes around, as the earth goes around the sun every year. When you learn science, you are empowered. Nobody can take that from you. And this is a message worth getting out. Where did you say you live?
I go to school in D.C.
Oh, in Washington.
Yes.
I grew up in Washington.
Oh.
I grew up in the city, okay? Go Nationals, right? Alice Steele Junior High School. So I know, I mean, I appreciate that problem, but it's a long journey. It's, everybody, you got to vote. We've got to support schools. I mean, you guys are asking just huge, tough, in my opinion, huge, tough questions. And these two people are addressing it in the neighborhoods where it's really got to be done. So a hand for them. Thank you. Check out the Planetary Society. I hope you come to Southern California for Planet Fest. If you don't, go to Chabot Observatory in Oakland. And Ames is going to have, NASA Ames is going to have a big crazy party. It's going to be an extraordinary thing that we hope inspires people in the same way the space program. And I just remind everybody that the space program that is the legacy really is a result of the Cold War. I mean, that people were so afraid. My family went shopping at a thing that would, in the old days, is akin to its now Home Depot, looking for a fallout shelter. We were going to build a fallout shelter in our basement, and everything's going to be fine during a nuclear war. We'll just stay here. People were so afraid, and then the moon got declared to be sort of the ultimate high ground, and as a result, we have this fantastic spacefaring capability in countries all around the world. But what we're left with is this extraordinary thing. Whenever you go out in space exploring, whenever you explore anything, two things are going to happen. You're going to make discoveries, and you're going to have an adventure. So to everybody who's at this conference, you are part of the next human adventure. This is, I think, this is not an extraordinary claim. With the ability to exchange information so fast, literally at the speed of light on fiberglass reinforced epoxy circuit boards, we can send information all over the world almost instantly, and this is the most exciting time to be alive. And this is, I will claim, the most exciting time in space exploration. And when Planet Fest comes up, when the Mars Curiosity rover, Mars Science Laboratory, lands on Mars, just try to remember where you were. It's a big deal. It's the next big thing in the solar system, if you're a human. So thank you all. Thank you, Dolly.
We've actually got one question from our
good. Oh, sorry.
So we're gonna let you guys do one more quick discussion. SpaceX wanted to bring people together to figure out how can we forge partnerships that'll help us solve this problem at a holistic level moving forward. I think you had mentioned at one point there's a lot of money that's actually gone into STEM initiatives over the last 15 years, but the needle has not moved very much. So what can we do differently? How can we collaborate more effectively such that the needle does move forward? Any ideas?
So there's a couple. I'll share our thoughts in this area. They seem to be proving true, but we're still kind of learning as we roll programs out. The first is that there's no question that we have to improve our educational system in this country. That's like a no-brainer, right? And we need to invest in that. But when it comes to STEM builds on education. Right? And a lot of what's going on in funding STEM today is just trying to fix basic education in science and math. Right? We need to accelerate engineering into the middle school and the high school levels. Right? And we need to give more hands-on capability with technology. A lot of schools, we used to have like auto shop was the big thing, right? Steve Jobs went to my high school. We had auto shop, we had electrical, basically an electrical club. You know, this is where we were making blue boxes and making prank phone calls to the Pope and all this stuff. But the thing is that those kind of more viewed as remedial auto shop type skills, we need the equivalent of a space auto shop program, right? In the high schools. We need tooling and capabilities at a local level with support for the teachers there. We need to do next generation manufacturing technologies. These are some things I've had discussions with DARPA about, right? We've outsourced our supply chain to China. We could bring all the jobs home, we still can't build the stuff here anymore, right? And we need to accelerate those kinds of things. It's very difficult. There's a tremendous amount of money that's kind of pooled in Washington, right? But it's got to get to the teachers. It's got to get to the small communities, because this is where the engagement is going to happen this time. And that means that we have to build these communities in partnership with the companies that are around there, and we need the leadership of the corporate folks who actually are best served by this, who are going to employ a lot of these space folks, right? And so those are areas that can be helped. But I think there's a lot of meetings that go on with a lot of the money. I know Change the Equation has raised a lot of commitments that are there. But, you know, I've been frustrated for the last 3 years to even connect with that. I mean, it's like this Washington, D.C. bubble. It's a lot like, it's like D.C. It's a bubble with Congress where the monies are. And yet the people, the needs, and the companies are in the community. And I think that we have to act. We can't sit and look for something magic to happen at DC. It's important, it would be great to happen, but I think we locally have to stand up and do this ourselves.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that from a psychological standpoint and a social standpoint, we are social animals, and we are so influenced by our peers, and we have to think about the influence that we have on our peers. So studies looking at why boys and girls don't like science are written from the perspective. This is what I actually read when I was researching for my charts here. Boys don't go into STEM because they think it will make them unpopular with their peers. Other boys won't like them. Girls don't go into STEM because they think it will make them sexually unappealing to boys. So if that's how it is, if that's what it said, now who's wrong? That's crazy. Right? But this is where we are, right? And so in Europe, they tried to make a video to make STEM more exciting to girls. Scientists were outraged. Feminists were outraged. Have you guys seen this video? It looks like a disco video and a lipstick ad, and the girls are in high heels and they're dancing around. Science is cool, lipstick. Girls like it. I like it. Why should we be embarrassed by this? You know, if girls aren't attracted to STEM, maybe it's because STEM isn't attractive to girls. Minorities, right? If you are interested in STEM and then you feel like the culture is not for you and people don't welcome you and they make you feel all the time like you're different, are you going to stay with it? No. So one of the things we can do is think about how do we keep science appealing. And you know what? Do you watch Bones? Anybody watch that show? Yeah. Does anybody watch, what's that other one that you mentioned? Big Bang Theory. A lot of people watch that. I'd rather be those women in Bones, you know? So, like, don't be embarrassed about that. And if you like anything science, say you like it and get other people.
Farrah Fowler's hilarious. Amy Farrah Fowler's just hilarious. Not that you'd want to be her exactly. I follow you. She's like, okay, we digress. But it's a long journey. And when you mentioned shop class, there was a different time when schools were going to give you vocational training to work repairing automobiles, for example. Well, how many people here when you were in high school had a computer class? How many people didn't have one? Well, you're of an age. I mean, you're, of course, just getting started, but you missed it, I think.
I had Steve Jobs.
You had Steve Jobs, right. So, and you made the, so if you guys ever, you know what a blue box is? It was very seldom blue, but you would produce touch tone tones. And in those days that you could dial any number. So what we used to do was call, I don't want to shock anyone, call Navy ROTC 800 number, and then send it the hang-up tone, but you were still on. And then we would call people all around the world. Oh, it was hilarious. So, but that's all code-divided multiple access has done all that. So my claim is there are computer classes in schools, but what you would like is a class where you have to build something. So let's work on that. Yeah. Let's encourage schools to have to make things. If you have people, and I'm not kidding, if you have people in Cub Scouts, no matter how else you might feel about them, that time where they have to make the race car is something. So let's encourage schools to have students build things. Maybe that's a heck. Say again. Have a reason to build it, so you can get. Yeah, have something cool, like a rocket.
Make all your neighbors want one too.
Yes, make all your neighbors want one. Yeah.
Homeowners associations don't like
Don't like rockets? How do they feel about kites? They're ambivalent. Yeah, the longest journey. Putting a camera on a kite is so easy nowadays. It used to be such a hassle. I'm telling you, it's just an astonishing thing when you see your backyard from, not really space, but above. Okay, you guys, this is really fun. I can stay. Do we have to go? Yeah.
No, I think at this point I'd like to thank our panelists. And one of the things, there's certainly a role for all of us to play, but all of you guys that are interested in science and technology, I've worked with FIRST Robotics, and the most limiting factor to scaling programs that are having success like FIRST Robotics is the amount of mentorship available. So I assume that all of you are interested in science. The best thing that you can do as a takeaway is go get involved with the FIRST Robotics team or go get involved with your local schools and have the opportunity to teach the things that made you passionate about science and technology to the next generation. Without the ability to get involved at an individual level, I think we'll always fail to move the issue forward in a meaningful way. So I want to thank the panelists for the great work that they do, and I want to encourage you guys to go out and do something about it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dolly.